Hi, can you please introduce yourself to the Stand Up and Fight audience, please?
Veronica Cox.
And Veronica Cox, where do you live?
I live at 490 Hoffman Avenue.
And is that part of the Trenton Housing Authority?
Yes.
Do you live in one of the senior buildings?
Yes.
How long have you lived in residence here?
I've been here a year and a half.
A year and a half. So I understand that you're having some difficulties or challenges right now.
Yes.
And I'm curious to understand more about what the problem is. What's started this issue for you?
Okay, well, I have a grandson that's 7, and his mom have lupus, and I got temporary custody of him, and it was either get temporary custody of him or either let the state take him because his mom couldn't get him back and forth to school when she was sick. So I took temporary custody of him. I submitted my paperwork in to Kenny, which works with housing over here in the development where I live at.
So stop right there. You needed to, you got custody of your grandson because your daughter was ill and could not do the work of getting him back and forth to school and all the other little things that children need.
Right.
So you're living in the senior building and you took custody of him here?
Yes.
And you gave Kenny paperwork, Kenny King?
Yes.
You gave Kenny King paperwork to do what?
State that I had custody of my grandson and to be transferred into a 2-bedroom. He told me that I would have to go on the bottom of the waiting list, which would be 1 to 2 years. And I asked him why. He said, because it's people before me.
Okay. What did that make you feel like when you told him you had custody, and it was sort of like emergency, I could only
Right.
imagine, and that you wanted to get a 2-bedroom in another Trenton Housing Authority property?
Right.
One that wasn't specifically for senior or disabled residents?
Right.
What did it make you feel like when you told him your situation, gave him paperwork, and he said, well, you're going to have to wait almost 2 years for this transfer?
I was hurt
And why were you hurt?
because that was an emergency to me, and I'm in a disabled and senior citizen building in a 1-bedroom. So you telling me that I have to wait almost a year or 2 for a transfer into another development when I have custody of my grandson? That was real, it just hurted me.
Oh.
I didn't know where to go or what to do at that point.
Okay.
So I left it, I didn't do anything for a minute until I spoke to someone in the resident council.
And who was that individual? You mean at the resident council of the residents here at Abbott?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
What's his name?
Clarence Willits?
Yes, Clarence.
The past president
Right, the
of the
past president, and he directed me into what I should do. So I did, and seen Mr. Leggett outside one day, and he must have noticed that I was upset.
And who's Mr. Leggett?
Mr. Leggett is
The director of Trenton
yeah,
Housing Authority? So
yes.
Bucky Leggett, the director of the Trenton Housing
Right.
Authority, saw you and you were looking blue.
right. And he asked me what was wrong, and I told him. He told me, don't worry about it. Go to the office and speak to Amy. I went to the office the next day.
In person or on the phone?
In person.
In person.
And that was March. Around about...
You can look at your calendar.
It was around about the 15th of April.
Uh-huh.
And she said, okay, I'm busy right now because of the stuff that was going on with housing. They was doing, changing stuff around in here and,
Well, she was just busy.
right, just getting
Right.
busy. And she told me to come back on a Wednesday.
So you saw Bucky Leggett. Bucky Leggett told you to call Amy. You called Amy, or you went to the office to talk to
Right.
Amy, and then Amy said, "We're busy, come back."
On a Wednesday, which was on the 20th.
20th of April.
Right. I went back and she was not there.
You went physically to
Yes, the
so,
office.
So let me get this straight. When you went down there to talk to her, to Amy,
Right over here.
at Donnelly Homes, she was right here at
She was
Josephson.
At Josephson.
So she said, go to see her again at
Right.
Josephson.
Right.
Was that an appointment that you made with her? You thought it was an appointment.
Right.
So you went back to see her on April 20th, and
She was not there.
did anybody say she'll be back? Did she leave a note for you?
Nothing.
Okay, and so then what
The
happened?
young lady that was in there called her, and she was in Dolly Holmes' office. She told the young lady to direct me to Miss Walker.
And who was Miss Walker?
Miss Walker is someone that works in Dolly Homes, far as giving you transfer into your apartment.
Okay, so transferring into, okay. So you called Miss Walker?
I called Miss Walker. She had no regulation of what was going on.
Okay. So let's back up. You gave Kenny King your paperwork. And where did you think he was going to give that? Who did you think he was going to give that paperwork to?
I thought it was going to submit it in.
So submit it in to get the process started. And the people who are in charge of this, in your mind, were supposed to get this paperwork.
Right.
Okay, so you talked with Miss Walker and she had no clue of anything that was going on.
Right.
And so what happened then?
I decided to call Mr. Leggett. And
What day was that? So did you do all this Miss Walker stuff on the 20th after Amy told you?
right.
And then the 20th you went back, she wasn't there. The lady said talk to Miss Walker.
Right.
You went to talk to Miss Walker.
Right.
All on the 20th of April.
Right.
And so she didn't know what was happening.
She didn't know what was happening. She said that she had to find out what was going on. She had to speak to Mr. Leggett
Okay.
before she can tell me anything and get all my paperwork.
Okay.
And I said, okay. She said give her 2 weeks and she would be back in touch with me. So I waited.
So 2 weeks, meaning that would be sometime in May, the beginning of May.
Right. So it was like I gave her till the 6th.
Okay.
She didn't call. So I called her.
So she said give her 2 weeks and she would get in touch with you. She never did.
No.
Did you call her that day, on the 6th?
Yes, I
Okay.
did. And I called her at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
And no answer. I
Okay.
left a message. I waited again. I called back on the 9th, but I called Mrs. Fran, which is a lady that worked with Mr. Leggett. I think that's his secretary or whoever that take messages for him.
Okay.
There was no answer to her. So I left a message telling them that this is Veronica Cox.
So you called Bucky Leggett's secretary, you believe.
Yes, which was Mrs. Fran on the 9th. And I left her a message.
It was the 9th of May.
Yes. And I left her a message telling her to tell Mr. Leggett or Miss Bernardo that I was reaching out to them concerning my transfer for my 2-bedroom. I didn't get no answer back or no reply.
From the secretary.
Right.
Okay. How many times did you call her?
I called her like 3-4 times.
Okay.
Different periods of the times. Then I waited. I let another week go by,
Okay.
thinking somebody. Okay, I done left messages with Miss Walker and Miss Fred. Now let a week go by, see what's gonna happen. See if somebody will reach out to me. Nobody never reached out to me.
Nobody ever returned your phone calls.
Nobody.
You never got a letter.
Nothing.
And prior to this, you told Bucky Leggett that you were in this bind, and he told you to talk to Amy.
Right.
Right. And so you did that. You talked with Amy, went to Miss Walker, never returned any calls, never received a letter. Then you went to Bucky Leggett's secretary or administrative assistant, and there was no reply from her. And you were giving time just to make sure that you weren't being a pest, maybe.
Right.
Give some time. And so now you're waiting, hoping that they'll call you back. And what happened?
I seen Mr. Leggett one day out here. I can't recall the day.
Out here at the Abbott.
At the Abbott building. And he asked me what was going on, and I told him that I went to the office and Amy wasn't there. He asked me where did I want to go. And I told him I wanted to stay in this area because it was closer for me to get to my daughter if anything was to happen.
You mean you wanted to stay in the Trenton Housing Authority
area?
Okay.
So that it was closer for me to get to my daughter. And he said, okay. So
at that moment when he said okay, you felt like that meant they could help you.
Right. So I took that as, okay, he's going to help me. He knew my situation. I'm just going to, wait and see what happens. Still, no one got back in touch with me. So on the 23rd of May, I called. I called Miss Walker, and I called Miss Fletcher to speak to Mr. Leggett again.
You mean Miss Fran or Fletcher? You're not sure? Okay.
And I called her to speak to Mr. Leggett or Miss Bernardo again. I left messages with Miss Walker and Miss Fran.
How about Miss Bernardo?
That's for Miss Bernardo and Mr. Leggett.
Okay.
She must be their secretary.
Okay.
No answer. No reply back on the 23rd. Nobody.
And when did this whole thing start again?
In March.
In March, and now we're into May 23rd.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I waited 2 days. I called back on the 26th. I called Miss Walker. No answer. So I decided to go into the office, and she wasn't in.
The administrative offices at Donnelly Homes.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Walker was out to lunch or something, they told me. So I said, okay. I then called back on the 27th to speak to her. No answer. So I then just, it was the weekend.
How did it make you feel that it seemed like it went 4 weeks, basically, almost, with the runaround? How did that make you feel as a resident and as a person?
Hurt. Because now it's like, okay, they're not going to help me, or are they going to help me? I hear one story from Mr. Leggett stating that, where do I want to go? So that's giving me hope that he's going to help me. So I'm like, okay. I'm like confused right now. Like, I have to have passes for my grandson. And, we only get 30 passes. So therefore, after my passes are used up, now where is my grandson going to go? Because they made me use passes for him.
So when you say passes, you mean your overnight visitation passes?
Yes.
So did you go through the 2-week stayover period, that 14 days, I think, that residents get to have guests? Or did they say right off the bat, you have to use up your visitation passes?
I had to, right off the bat, I had to use up my visitation passes. Meaning you already know that I have custody of my grandson. So why should I have to use my passes, which means my family that's coming from out of town or whatever won't have passes.
Right, because
the visitation house rule states that residents only have 30 overnight passes for 365 days a year. Once the 30 overnight passes are used up, no more overnight guests for the year. Residents must give their guest's name, address, phone number, age, arrival date, and departure date. This request must be submitted 24 hours in advance of guest arrival and will not be accepted after 4 p.m. Many residents find this house policy unfair. When it was implemented 12 years ago, it had a reason. Now that time has gone and things have changed, the house policy does not seem relevant and hinders the enjoyment of the residents' home for which they pay rent.
And I had an incident with that, with all this. You know, I had a daughter that came from Detroit. She couldn't stay because they denied my overnight passes because they said I had no more time. And she had to sleep in a car, and she was pregnant. So, I then decided to go back to calling again.
This is in June.
Yes.
We started in April, and now we're in June. You've gotten no response,
None.
no callbacks, no nothing. In the midst of that, you used up your passes. You had your pregnant daughter come down to visit you. She had to sleep in the car because she had nowhere else to go. So you got that stress.
Right.
Now you have the no contacting you stress. And now you said, I got to get back to dealing with this issue. I got to know what
It's going to happen.
is going to happen.
With me and my grandson, knowing that I know that I'm not allowed to have him living in this building with me because it's a senior and disabled building. So I thinking, okay, being though that I submitted everything, now I should get the proper help that I need.
And you submitted everything in March.
Yes.
Did you have to resubmit anything in the process? Did you send any other paperwork in?
No.
So you're saying I submitted everything, so let me just finish following up on this.
Right.
Okay.
So I waited till the 7th of March. I mean the 7th of June. I called again Miss Fran to speak to
Mr. Leggett.
Mr. Leggett and Miss Bernardo. No answer. She never returns my phone call. None of the times I called her to even say, well, Miss Bernardo or Mr. Leggett is not in. I can take a message for you and I can take your phone number and give you a call back. I was very hurt about that because I was wondering, well, why do you have a secretary or whoever she is that she can't return your phone calls?
But Ms. Walker never called you back either,
No.
right?
No.
So you got two people who are dismissing your very real need.
Right. So.
And, well, three really, because if Bucky let forth, Mr. Leggett and Ms. Bernardo were getting your messages, then everybody's sort of ignoring a very serious issue for you and your family.
Right. So, I waited again for a couple of more days. I'm like, all right. My kids keep saying, Mom, you might as well give up. I'm like, I'm not giving up because I know they got to help me. I done submitted everything in. There's no way that they're should be able to deny me, you know? They know the rules, I know the rules.
What are the rules?
I know that I'm not supposed to be in the senior citizen building after 7 days of submitting court paper documents to them that they were supposed to have either told me that they were going to put me in a 2-bedroom.
And do you know the rules for transferring?
That I think I have, I think it's 7 to 14 days.
To request a transfer?
Yeah.
Okay, and do you believe that when you request a transfer that you should be afforded the opportunity to transfer based on what you know? You should be able to transfer?
Yes.
Based on your knowledge?
Right.
Right, so you were just believing that this was going to, at some point, allow you just to move into a new place.
Right.
You never thought you'd be out
Right.
or your child would be out. You felt you would both be moved to another place in the housing authority and just live life as normal.
Right.
Okay, so we're back to contacting people, nobody's calling.
Right. Okay, so the 16th of June, I goes to the office to speak to Mr. Leggett and them, again, I go personally to Dolly Homes to speak to them. Nobody, he wasn't in. Nobody never got up from the desk to find out. They said the phone was just ringing. When I go home, call back.
How long were you at Donnelly Homes waiting for someone to help you?
Probably all day. I went and then I left and I came back because I got real agitated and upset. I didn't want to sit there and cry in front of nobody. You know what I'm saying? Because I see already they wasn't helping me, so why just keep sitting there? So I got up, I walked away because I know my attitude.
But you stayed there all day long. The security knew you were there basically all day long except for a break you took. And nobody had the common courtesy to come out and say, well, Ms. Cox, can you come back? Or here's a piece of paper, or we're going to do this. So you just sat there. And that sitting there, did it make you feel sort of like, you know, you said you went outside and you dropped some tears maybe, and that was because you felt what? I know you said hurt, but when you say hurt, what does that?
Hurt, angry, disappointed, disgusted, just, I couldn't believe that I wasn't getting no type of assistance. Like, where was anybody morals, I guess, or anything to help me, like to come out and assist me. Hi, how you doing? Who do you need to speak to? Nobody.
So you're questioning the morality or the morals,
Right.
even if they couldn't do anything, at least to come out, being that you're there, to come out and say something.
Or let me go see who can help you with your situation and find out what you can do.
Okay,
None of that.
okay.
So then I left. I go home. I waited 3 days. The 20th, I called back. I called Ms. Walker again, and that was around about 2 o'clock. No answer. I left it alone. I waited till the 22nd. I called back. Now I called Mr. Leggett and them again. No answer. So now I'm getting frustrated, real frustrated. I goes back on the 23rd.
And physically to the Donnelly Homes.
To Dolly Homes. They said they were in a meeting and they would be out around about 2 o'clock. Him and Miss Bernardo was in the meeting and they would be out around about 2. I said, okay. I goes home. I call. Nobody picks up again. So I go. So on the 23rd, I calls Ms. Walker. I leave her a message because she didn't pick up. So I got fed up and I went back again on the 24th. I seen Miss Fran
Outside.
inside the building. She was coming out of our office. I seen her. They was like, this who you want to speak to? So I'm like, oh. I said, someone who never pick up their phone.
Miss Fran?
Right.
Is the person you should be talking to?
That I should be talking to find out who I'm supposed to talk to as far as my situation.
Okay.
So I was like, I wanted to see Mr. Leggett or Miss Bernardo because I'm supposed to do a transfer into my place. She was like, oh no, you want to speak to Mrs. Walker. She was like, hold up a minute. I'm going to go back here and see if she's in. She went back there. She said, well, Ms. Walker said, come back to the back. I go back to the back. I finally get to see Ms. Walker and speak to her. She was like, hi, Ms. Cox. I said, hi. She said, well, I have your paperwork right here, and they denied you. I said, they denied me. Yeah, because you wanted your daughter. I said, that was something old. That was never, I've been trying, drop that as far as my daughter moving in or whatever.
So they had something old that
Yeah.
you weren't even dealing with.
Right. I said my situation was with me and my grandson. And I explained to her that my daughter had lupus. I submitted the lupus paper in from the doctors and stuff that she couldn't do, as far as, doing a lot of walking, being in the sun, all that. That's what her doctor note stated. And then I said, I just submitted. She was like, well, what happened to your paperwork from the court? I said, I gave it to Kenny.
Kenny King.
Kenny King. Oh, well, I'm going to have to talk to him and find out where it's at. And I don't have none of that paperwork. I have other paperwork that's due from such and such a date, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I had to talk to Mr. Leggett. But right now, he's not in because he had death in the family. He hasn't been in a couple of days. But he will be in either Friday or Monday, and I'll talk to him. I said, okay. She was like, but you at the top of the list. Just give me your phone number.
But you just said, she said you were denied.
That was, when she told me I was denied, she was denying me for me adding my daughter.
For something else. Okay,
right.
So she denied you for something old. It was no longer an issue. But then on the issue of moving with your grandson,
right,
she says you'll be at the top of the list.
Right.
Okay.
She told me I would be at the top of the list. She said, your paper is the first one we're going to talk about. Matter of fact, let me look and see. She was like, we do have some vacancies, but they got to be finished. And matter of fact, we have one right next door to your daughter. Would you like to take that one? I was like, sure, why not? You know what I'm saying? She was like, oh, would you like to live with your daughter? I was like, no. I was like, my daughter, I'm grown, she's grown. She's in a 2-bedroom, and she has another child. Where am I sleeping at? It's 4 of us in a 2-bedroom. Come on.
So she actually asked
Right.
if you wanted to move in with your daughter.
And I told her no. She said, okay.
Irregardless of the laws about occupancy.
Right.
That's an awful lot of people. 2 boys
Right.
with 2 women
Mm-hmm.
in a 2-bedroom house.
Right.
Okay.
So she said, well, let me talk to Mr. Leggett and see where we're going to place you. I said, okay. She calls me back
How long?
Friday.
So it was like a week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She called you back a week from the time she saw you.
Right, which was on the 24th.
Of June.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
She called me back within a week. After that, I waited a week. And that Friday, she called me that just passed. And told me that they denied me.
How'd that make you feel?
Hurt. I hung up. I said some things that I probably shouldn't have said to her. But at that time, I did not care.
Did she give you a reason why they denied you a transfer?
Kenny King said that I can move in with my daughter and help take care of her and her kids instead of transferring me.
Into a 2-bedroom apartment.
Mm-hmm.
How old's the oldest son?
7.
How old the youngest son?
1.
So he said you could move back in with your daughter to help her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did they say anything else as to why they denied you?
No, that was it.
And did they give you some sort of ultimatum that if you didn't want that, what you could do or what you would have to do? If
Well, no. They really basically no. She was like, all I'm telling you, Miss Walker said, is your grandson cannot stay in this building with you. So what I took it as, you telling me I had to move out this building and find me somewhere else to go, or go live with my daughter, which is in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're telling me is basically I'm on my own on this, and that I can either go homeless or go be scrammed up in a 2-bedroom with my daughter and her 2 boys.
Did anybody ever tell you that you should give your son up? Your grandson up to foster care?
No, I'm not giving them up.
Did anybody ever recommend that or make you think that?
Well, that's how they made me feel. because that's what they're saying. You're gonna keep your apartment, or you're gonna have to let him go back to his mom or whatever. That's how it made me feel. You know what I'm saying? Either let diapers take him because she's ill. You know what I'm saying? Some days I have to have her over here. If I'm doing things here, I have to make her come over here so I can look after her, because some days she can't do nothing.
Right.
So that's a 1-bedroom. So you know how that, her 2 boys and me in a 1-bedroom when she's up there.
And plus, you don't have any more overnight passes, so if she
Right.
needed to stay with you overnight for you to care for her, she couldn't.
No.
So, what do you think your next steps are?
I'm gonna take it further as I can take it if they don't help me with a 2-bedroom. I need the 2-bedroom. You know, I need, my grandson can't stay here no more. That's what they told me.
Do you think that they need to give you explanation as to why they won't move you into an apartment? They said you can move in with your daughter, but
never gave me an explanation
as to
of
why
they wouldn't give me. Yes, if they gave me an explanation of why they couldn't give me a 2-bedroom and what was the reason why, and if it was a good reason, then I can accept that.
At any time, did anybody send you any letters, any official paperwork that outlined the reasons that you couldn't move? Or
No.
did you receive any letter with their final determination in it, what their final verdict was? Did you receive any official letters from the Housing Authority about a transfer case for which you actually submitted papers to move? Did you receive anything to acknowledge any of this in the mail?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing.
So
I got by word of mouth from Ms. Walker stating that the management from over here were going to write me and telling me that my grandson couldn't live in in the senior citizen building.
But there was no letter outlining their determination that you should move in with your daughter.
No.
You never received any letter about that.
No.
They just told you over the phone what their conclusion was.
Right.
So you said your next steps are to fight.
Yes.
So what exactly would you like to have happen? If it could, what would you like to have happen next?
I would like to be put into my 2-bedroom, and if I couldn't be put into my 2-bedroom, I'm going to take it further and take it higher to the courts, because I'm in a senior citizen building. You know what I'm saying? I'm in a 1-bedroom, which is but so big. Me and my grandson.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, they've been knowing that I was living in here with him. They've been had my paperwork. So you mean to tell me they were wrong from the beginning of letting me stay in here this long with him? I should have been had a 2-bedroom.
Do you know anything about a grievance process? Has anybody told you anything about where you could present this as a grievance and get it's like a court, but not a real court. It's where you meet up with, I guess, the director of the Housing Authority or other officials, and you grieve. You say, this is what's going on. I need to know why, or I need to move. Has anybody mentioned any grievance process to you?
No.
And you told me earlier that somebody told you that if you talk to the media, what would happen? Who told you this? If you talk to the media, they wouldn't do what?
I could get evicted.
Who told you this?
Residents.
Anybody from the administration building?
Ms. Walker told me not to talk to y'all. She was like, just don't talk to y'all.
Why?
She just said, don't talk to y'all.
And did she say anything would happen if you did? Or did it feel like she was insinuating that if you did, you may not be able to move?
Right.
So she made you feel like if you did talk, there could be a problem with your transfer.
Right.
So
that's why I didn't want to talk to no one, because I was scared that I was going to be on the street. And I don't have nowhere to go. You know what I'm saying? So it took me a minute to even, it took for me to hear from her on Friday and get the news from her on Friday for me to say, okay, forget it. If they're gonna do what they're gonna do, then they're gonna do whatever. But I'm gonna speak out now because they're wrong.
Did you know that, you submitted this early in April, right? Did you know that the Board of Commissioners meeting meets every, I think, second Wednesday? Did you think about going there to present your case to the Board of Commissioners?
No, I never even knew that they had a meeting. No, I knew about one meeting, and our president had told me about it, and I was supposed to meet him there, but the same day that they had that meeting, my daughter was getting married.
And by the time they gave you the verdict, believe it or not, the commissioners' meetings were on recess for the summer. So you wouldn't even have any recourse over the summer to meet with the board as a citizen going to the meeting and presenting your case, because it seemed like the timing was perfect,
Yes.
where even if you did think about going to the Board of Commissioners, by the time they gave you the verdict, their meetings were in recess. They had finished with their last meeting. So you don't know about the grievance process, and you don't know about presenting your case before the commissioners.
No.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody doesn't know all this stuff because it's a lot of stuff to know. Is there anything else that you want to say about this issue? How is your grandson doing? Is he okay?
He just keeps saying, Grandma, why they won't move us? Why I can't live with you? Well, Grandma, is I'm going somewhere else?
So he's worried
Yes.
about his security, his safety. He doesn't feel safe right now.
Right.
And I'm sure that bothers you. That bother any grandma, parent, or caretaker.
Right. I'm just hurt right now. And if anybody out here that's hearing me, if y'all can help me, help me. Speak to someone else for me or have someone else contact me, please do so, because enough is enough with Housing Authority, and excuse my French, with they bullshit.